Alright everyone, we're going to go into the last file. The last class contains quite a bit of information. It's also going to be functional for the last assignment that you have, Project 2. We're going to compile everything and run it and see if it still works. Data. We talked about the connection pool, talked about the utility file that does resource cleanup. Now we're going to actually talk about the main class here, the customer DB. Now, let me show you how this is going to work. It's actually have various functionality, and that is that not only are we going to be able to insert, update, and delete, but we're also going to be able to use this for selecting if we wanted to too in further application functionality. So let's begin. First thing, it's in a package called CRUD, which is in a package called data. As I mentioned to you before, be careful of your naming conventions. Everything in Java must start inside of, for Java server pages anyway, inside of your application, 4368, inside of web-inf, and inside of classes begins the path to your classes. Now here we got a package called CRUD, and then we have 3 sub-packages, and the one I'm in right now is data. So what we have to do is, starting from class, we begin our path. So what do we have from class? Or I'm sorry, classes plural. We have CRUD and data. We have to indicate that at the top of our file. And what is a package again? It's just a group of similarly functional classes. We put them in a package of their own or a sub-package. We're going to import a couple different components here, gang, for Java. Not only SQL, but also an array list. Now, you can look it up online, what an array list versus an array. It's very good. They're both very good utilities to be able to use, components to be able to use. Really, objects. Both an array list and an array are considered objects, but arrays will work with primitive data types. Array lists won't. Array lists only work with objects, but and we don't access them using the brackets, square brackets, like we would with arrays. We don't access them like that. We access them using methods. And the beauty about an array list over an array is a fixed sized data structure. An array list can expand, contract, and it's very good for working with databases like we are now with a web interface. So we're going to use an array list, as you'll see in the code below. We're also going to import the customer class. Now remember, we have to use the package name as well. So the customer class resides in CRUD, in business, and there's a customer class, which, by the way, is not compiled yet. As I showed you in a previous video, we don't have those compiled, which we will. This class name is, as always in Java, we have to give it the same name as a file name, so it's customer DB. C is capitalized, and the D and the B are capitalized. And I'm going to go through this rather quickly because I want to talk about the compilation. Now notice, we're going to pass an actual customer object. And we're going to pass that. We're going to get that from the customer class. We're going to pass a customer object to this particular method, an entire object. So just going back rather briefly here, when I go to my servlet, notice what I'm doing here. I'm getting first of all, it's in a package. I talked about this before, so I don't want to go into depth about this. We are importing the customer class and the customer DB class from the CRUD data package. But what I want to talk about is how we're actually passing that. Remember, we're getting the user values from the form. Then what we're going to do is instantiate a customer object called user, passing all the data that were placed in the variables. And then what we do data validation, as mentioned before. Here we're only testing to see if there's actual data put in. We're not doing any extensive data validation, which we should in a live application. And then what we're doing is we're communicating with that class, customer DB, that we're going to use the insert method. Now, we're in customer DB right now, and here is where our insert method is. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass an entire object user with all the data together as one object. All the data is together in one object called user. And all that data of fname, lname, street, city, state, zip is in that one object variable called user. And we're going to pass that. We're going to pass that to the insert method that's right here with a class called customer DB. We're going to pass that, passing an entire user, actually a customer, entire customer. It's a customer class. We're passing a object variable called user. And then now we're going to go through the methods in the customer DB class. And here they are. First of all, because we're interacting with the database, and this particular functionality of the database requires that it may have an error when accessing, we have to put it in try-catch blocks. And normally what I do is I don't use this type of coding like this, but for purposes of making it easier to display all the methods, I'm going to use left angle brackets and possibly right angle brackets that are not all left aligned, as you'll see here. And maybe I should do that. Let's see, how much time would it take to do that? No, I'm not going to do that because it's going to take too much time for me to extend that code, and the reason why I kept it is so it can be seen all in one screenshot. So again, for each one of these, we're going to create a connection pool, a connection, and a prepared statement that's going to be null. We're going to assign that to null until we actually invoke that prepared statement. With that prepared statement will be invoked with an actual query. The query will be a string, and it's just going to be a SQL string. The one thing that's going to be different here is we're actually going to be using what we call anonymous placeholders. Now, PHP allows for named parameters or named placeholders. Java, the JDBC, does not. And I put that here in a note. Unfortunately, the JDBC doesn't make it easy to use name parameters or name placeholders like it does, like PHP does. We could use this colon name like this, and we could give it a name for each one. So we could give it, say, F name or L or F or whatever we want to represent the F name, the L name, the street. Here we have to use what's known as anonymous placeholders. PHP allows for this too, but I personally don't like using them because then it just makes the coding much more difficult to read. Notice that each one of these values here that's coming in from the these are the attributes inside of the customer table, right? So going back to the actual data store, as we have to, cus f name, cus l name, cus street, etc. We're actually connecting to the customer table now directly, so we have to use those attribute names. And remember, just like in any SQL statement, there's no comma after the last attribute. And these are placeholders. Why are they placeholders? Because we're going to then create this prepared statement, and this is what prevents SQL injection, by actually invoking this prepared statement that's going to be passed to the database server. And then after that prepared statement is passed, then what we're going to do is pass the data values that we're going to get from each one of the the data values that were submitted in that servlet. So whatever the servlet captured, we're going to get the first name, get the last name, get the straight, and again, remember the convention, the Java Bean convention of having to have the first name of that variable capitalized. Remember the variable names were F name, lowercase, L name, all lowercase. Well, because we're using Java Bean technology, the first letter of that variable has to be capitalized. If there's more than one word, then each successive word after the first letter has to be capitalized. Okay, so we use the setString method, and what we do is we give it a number. We can't give it a name, we give it a number, and because there are 11 involved from first name to notes, these have to have 11 anonymous placeholders. So that when we invoke our prepared statement, then after that is sent to the DBMS, then we could actually send the data, and that's how it prevents SQL injection, by creating the prepared statement first and then after sending the data. So we're not sending a raw SQL statement across the internet. All right, what we're doing then is executing that prepared statement, and here we're saying execute update, and because it can generate an error, we're having a catch block. A finally block is something that we use in Java that will, after everything is done, that finally block will be executed. And so if we want to close that prepared statement or free up that connection, we could do so in the finally block. And remember, gang, that actually happens in the DB utility. Remember I made that DB utility class, and all of the resources are being closed and memory is being reallocated through that DB utility. But it's happening here. Here are the calls. So dbutil.close prepared statement, and then also freeing up that connection pool so that other connections can be using it. So here's all the code for the insert method right here. You could pause it. Here's all the code for the update method. And notice the actual method name, the Java method that's used with that is called execute update. Whether it's an insert or whether it is an update, it's still execute update is the method that we call. And we're calling it by the prepared statement. So that was for the insert. Here is for the update method. And notice we're using it's standard SQL, right? But all we're using are those anonymous placeholders. And remember, gang, each time inside of these methods, we're creating a connection pool, a connection, and a prepared statement. So the update method. Next is the delete method. Here's some extra methods that we could use as well too to check if an email exists. And so we could use this for certain functionality in our application as well too. And for that, we're just doing select cus email from customer where cus email equals that name placeholder. Again, preventing the possibility of SQL injection. Next, we're going to select one customer. We could retrieve one customer here. Select all from customer or cus email equals an email. In other words, we're just selecting one customer. And by the way, a cus email should be unique, so that's why that will work. And then finally, with this array list, as I mentioned to you, we can actually retrieve all customers and put them into an array list. And again, that array list, is not a fixed data structure. It's actually a data structure that is dynamic. It can increase, decrease, and we're not stuck to giving a length to that array like we are with a regular array. When we create an array list, it allows it to expand and contract. And lastly, what we do is we close that curly bracket for the name of the class. So again, gang, here it is in slow motion. All of our packages and imports, the beginning of the class, the beginning of the method for the insert. This is the insert definition. This is the update definition. This is the delete definition. And again, notice even in the delete, we're still using the method called for Java Server Pages and Servlets. It's given to us by Java. It's called execute update. Regardless of it's an insert, delete, or update, the built-in method, the intrinsic method, is called execute update. That's for the delete. This is for the email exists. Here's the select customer for one customer, and then finally to retrieve all the customers is right here. And then lastly, the final curly bracket. All right, gang, the only thing we have to do now is compile these classes. And I made a change here, so let me close out of that. Okay, all we have to do is compile these. Now, to compile them, let me close out of here. Actually, let me forward engineer this so we have a fresh data set. Okay, then I'll close out of this. And then I'll open up this, do a select all, so you can see I only have 5 records. And then close out of this. And then go to my instructions that I gave you in assignment number 5. And the assignment number 5 shows you how to compile all these. So first thing we want to do is CD in Windows, CD here, right, to the classes. And in Mac, you would CD here. For the data classes, we do the same thing. We're already there, so we could just invoke this command right here like this. Okay, and that's what we're going to do. And then for the servlet, you have to CD to classes again as well. As if they're still there, you could do it. But we have to make sure we pull in this jar file, as I mentioned in a previous video. You have to pull in this jar file to be able to actually invoke, or I should say, compile your servlet. So let's begin. I'm going to open up a new command line. I'm going to CD to classes. Paste that path in there. Okay, and I only have to do that once now because I'm going to be compiling everything, but I want to show you something, what happens if you forget to compile. I'm here. I'm going to refresh. And then I'm going to go and try to run it. Remember, no classes are compiled. The Java Server Pages will work, but no classes are compiled. So I'm going to get this error. There's no customer list servlet right now. So what do I need to do? I need to start compiling all this. So let's do that. I'm in Windows, so I'm going to invoke this command right here. I'm going to compile my Java file. And just to show you, I'm going to go into Business. And you'll see that it's not compiled. I'm going to go here and invoke that compile command like that. Hit Enter. And you'll see there's my class. Okay. I'll do the same thing for data. There's no classes right here. And all I have to do is go over here to the file, to the instructions that I provided for you. And again, this asterisk means it's going to compile everything with a .java extension. So I don't have to do these individually. Makes life a lot easier. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Compile, take a look, and you see all the classes are there. Next, I need to do my servlet. Okay, I don't have a class for my servlet, so what I'm going to do is just pull in. Remember, I got to pull in that servlet API.jar file. Make sure Gang, it's important if your servlet API.jar file is not here in this path, the servlet API is not here, then you're going to have to find out where that servlet API. It's going to be somewhere in Tomcat lib, but yours for Windows, yours may be in program files. So then you have to add that to it. But again, modify this path to find this servlet-api.jar file. Okay, you got to modify that. Mine is exactly there, and what we're going to do is just copy this, go back here, run it, and you could see that I now have a class. Okay, now let's go back here. Let's hit Command R and continue. And nothing. What's going on? Well, what you need to do is when you compile your classes like that, first thing you want to do is shut down, and yours may not work like mine is. I have it set so I can invoke these commands directly from the command line. Shut it down, and notice I don't have it running, and then I'm going to start it up again. Okay? Here is Tomcat. Notice I don't see any errors here. I'm good to go. And let me run this again now. Command R, continue. And it's saying, okay, it's checking my data validation. So it works. Let's add something here just to make sure. And again, I'm going to go back to the data store to make sure that it's working. I still have 5 records. Let's put in a filled in form, put in something here for data, and even include my cross-site scripting capability. Submit it. There it's showing the data as it was entered, so I'm preventing cross-site scripting. But let's see if the data was actually entered. Going back to your data repository, do a select all on the data, and there it is. That data was actually entered into the database. Gang, don't forget that. That's crucial. That you always, whenever you have the capability of directly working with the data, make sure that you take advantage of that. So you can see that not only is the application saying what it's supposed to be doing, but it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. And the only way to figure that out or find that out is when you have the actual access to the database. All right, gang, if you have any questions, I hope this was very beneficial for you. You did a lot of work. And I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you can use what you're learning right now to get yourself a very good job. All right, gang, see you in class.